And what's the deal with Crocs? Are they holy shoes blessed by Gad himself? Gad himself? He got himself. He got himself. Enchilada tortilla. Torrantulas. Tanner doesn't have a job still. So, you've made it past 1 minute and 46 seconds in the video without saying much. Shall I read you a book? Okay, Mr. Grover.
I am not going to the end of this book if there is a monster in there. Monsters are not to be trifled with.
I'm going to stay right here on the first page. That's what it says in the book. What I'm to do. Because you said you would. And I'm a man who does what he says he's going to do. And I know what I want. Whether you ask for it or not, I will give you what you need, is what the salesman thinks. Maybe another book. Hansel and Gretel. Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time, there dwelt on the outskirts of a large forest and pool a woodcutter with his wife and two children. The boy was called Hansel and the girl was called Gretel. He had always little enough to live on, and once, when there was a great famine in the land, he couldn't even provide them with daily bread. Oh, freaking bummer. Me and this Hansel guy had lots in common. One night, as he was tossing about in bed, full of scares and. Stay with me? Stick in? Stick with me? Worry, he sighed, and said to his wife, What's to become of us? How are we to afford our how are we to afford to feed our poor children? He said to his wife, What has become of us? How are we to feed our poor children when we have nothing more than ourselves? I'll tell you what, husband. I'll tell you what, husband, answered the woman. Early tomorrow morning, we'll take the children out into the thickest part of the wood. There we shall light a fire for them and give them each a piece of bread. When we'll go on our work tour, what? We'll go on to our work and leave. My bad. Uh, no, wife, said her husband. That I won't do. How could I find it in my heart to leave the children alone in the wood? The wild beast would soon come to tear them to pieces. Oh, you fool, she said. Then we must fucking die of hunger. And you may as just as well go to plane in our coffins. And she left him no peace until he consented. Badgered. She badgered him till he consented. The children, too, had not been able to sleep for hunger and had heard what their stepmother had said to their father, Gretel wept bitterly. Weep bitterly. Now he's all over with us. That wasn't bitter. Now it's all over with us. No, no, Gretel, said Hansel. Don't worry. I'll find a way out. No fear. And when the old people had fallen asleep, he got up, slipped on his little coat, opened the back door, and stole out. The moon was shining clearly, and the white pebbles which lay in front of the house glittered like bits of silver. Hansel bent down and filled his pocket with as many of them as he could cram in. Then he went back and said to Gretel, Be comforted. Be confronted. Be comforted, my dear little sister Percy. You have dyslexia. And go to sleep. And he lay down in bed again. At daybreak, even before the sun was up, the woman came and woke the two children. Get up, lazy bones. We're all going to the forest to fetch food. She gave them each a bit of bread and said, There's something in for your lunch, but don't eat it up for it's all you'll get. Gretel put bread in her apron, as Hansel had the stones in his pocket. Then they all set out together on the way to the forest. After they had walked for a little, Hansel kept stopping to look back at the house. His father saw him and said, Hansel, what are you looking at? And why do you always lag behind? Take care and remember to use your legs. Oh, father, said Hansel, I'm looking back at my white kitten, which is sitting on the roof, waving me a farewell. The woman exclaimed, What a donkey you are! Think it. Bow chicka wow wow. The foyesi do scarp and glarp. But Hansel had not looked back at his kitten. Each time he stopped, he dropped one of the white pebbles out of his pocket onto the path. When they had reached the middle of the forest, the father said, Now, children, go, fetch a lot of the wood, and I'll light the fire, so you can not be cold. Hansel and Gretel heaped up brushwood until they had made a pile nearly the size of a small hill. The brushwood was not set on fire, and when the flames leaped high, the woman said, Now lie down at fire, children, and rest yourselves. We are going into the forest to cut down wood. When we finished, we'll come back to fetch you. Hansel and Gretel sat down beside the fire, and at midday ate the little bits of bread, and heard strokes of the axe, so they thought their father was quite near. But it was no axe they heard, but a bow. He had tied a bow. He had tied a dead tree being blown about the wind. He tied down a dead tree being blown about the wind. And when they had sat for a long time, their eyes closed with fatigue, and they fell fast asleep. When they awoke, at last, it was pitch dark. Gretel began to cry. How are we ever going to get out of the wood? She said. Hansel confronted her. Wait a bit, he said, until the moon is up, and then we'll find our way, sure enough. And when the full moon had risen, he took his sister by the hand and followed the pebbles, which shone like newly coined silver pieces, showing them the path. They walked all through the night, and daybreak reached their father's house again. They knocked at the door, and when the woman opened it, she exclaimed, "You naughty children! What a time you slept in the wood! He thought you were never going to come back." But when the father rejoiced, for his conscience had been reproached, leaving him no choice but leaving the children to fend for themselves. At the end of the day, just do the work and you get the pay. You should have told me that way back. I've been selling stuff. You can go away if you don't want to deal with me. So, besides the ceiling, the ceiling. I'll think of something good in a minute. Sure enough. Kapunk, 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 kapunk. Why do they call it a chair when it's on the porch? And a seat when it's in the vehicle? This is something I've always wanted to know. What is the distinguishing between seat and chair? I guess being in a vehicle. This just in, a swing and a miss. You know what I miss? My dead grandmama. Still playing the piano just for you. Right, monetization is not available in your area. Big difference. There you go. There you go. Have a splendid day.